Chris Lee and Blake Lovell of Southeastern 14, presented by Steaks. We're here to talk about basketball games. On Tuesday night, November the 15th, it was a nice slate of games. You had some interesting ones, and the most interesting one was the one involving Kentucky, which lost Oscar Tshiebwe to foul trouble late, and that made a big difference in an overtime loss to Michigan State. We'll make
It
that double
did.
overtime loss, right?
I was gonna say, yeah, double overtime. It made a difference, but there was a lot of other stuff I think in that game that I think if you're a Kentucky fan, you're coming out frustrated because that felt like a game they should have won, and not meaning that they were the
Yeah.
number 4 team. Let's be honest, Michigan State's a ranked team, and that's what I always say. Preseason polls are useless because I don't care what you say about how they project this or that, but it's like Michigan State's top 25 team. They just beat Kentucky. They lost to Gonzaga by 1. Let's just call it what it is. Um,
Mm-hmm.
So throw that aside. It's still a game where Kentucky had every opportunity to finish the game and win. Um, Free throws, a couple missed free throws. We're just starting with a negative first, by the way. Then we're going to get to some positives because I'm gonna take this a direction that make people understand that this is not the sky is not falling for Kentucky just yet. Um, Missed free throws. I mean, the situational awareness. This was a bad situational awareness game for Kentucky because in the late game scenarios, whether it's the 2 dunks they gave up that forced each of the overtimes, or just certain shot selection moments that you just should not take some of those shots in the moments they took them. Their situational awareness was not good here. And I think that was a frustrating
Oh,
part
the,
for
the the
Kentucky
wide
fans.
open dunk with a second and a half left was just like I'm watching the TV. What was
Well, it
this?
happened twice. I mean, it happened.
Right.
It happened twice. Like that's what sent it to.
Yeah.
Like they gave up one the first time, which was worse than the second one. The second one just happened to be off of a. I don't remember what scenario it was, but it was more off a pass, and guy just was open and dunked it. But yeah, I mean, I guess the miscommunication with Tshiebwe and someone else just guy just slips to the basket, dunks it, overtime. Second one, Michigan State brings it down, and yeah, I mean but that again goes back to that's where the frustration has to come in. I think if you're a Kentucky fan, is just knowing that those big moments like that, they just were not, they were not good in those moments that are what we like to call game winning moments, right? Like they're the ones that win you the games, and Kentucky wasn't good in those, and so I think there's reason to be frustrated for that. Um, some of the other stuff I was not impressed with. Their offense right now is just it's a lot of standing and watching, and it's a lot of isolation, standing. Um, Somebody tries to make a play off a drive, throw it down low, and everybody else is just on the perimeter watching.
Isn't
I
that the
get it.
design of the offense, though?
Well, if it is,
Ish.
they're not going to go anywhere because that's not
Yeah.
good. Because they have to be able to run some stuff. I think that is more than just isolation in down the stretch and just letting one guy take it and do this. Now I'm not look, Severe Wheeler, how many he's a great assist guy. He found a lot of players just by penetrating and kicking. But I think Chris in these kind of games, let me ask you this question. All right. You say that's the offense. And I agree with you. Like that is, I mean, Cal's
It's the
offense is
dribble
what it is.
drive.
But if you look on the other side, Tom Izzo, how many great play calls you see in that game? I saw a lot. I saw a lot
Several.
of dedicated, good play calls in the right moments to put their guys in the right spot for open shots and to give themselves a chance to win. Not saying everything was perfect. And I'm not throwing Cal under the bus here, but I think those are the kind of things that you want to see more of from Kentucky is just again, it's kind of that situational stuff. Just don't I know it's their offense, but I think their offense has to evolve some. Because I just worry that that's not going to be something that can help them in those close games. I mean, again, where's Antonio Reeves?
Well, you're going where I'm going next. Like with all that went wrong for them, Reeves and Frederick were a combined 3 of 14 from the field.
Well, hold on.
You may not
That
see
wasn't
that
going
the
to be my
rest of the
point.
year. Okay.
My point was going to be where was Reeves? Why was he on the bench late in the game? Um, because I that was another frustration. I feel like that he's someone that I think you need out there in those late situations. And Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I just again, these are the things in those big games early in the season that are going to frustrate you. If you're watching from a Kentucky standpoint, because there were a lot of moments where they didn't shoot it as well, which I don't think's that surprising. Like we said, they weren't going to shoot 50% from three the entire year. In their first game away from home, they just don't make shots. But I just don't. I don't know. Again, it's the offense. I just think is something that has to evolve from here, and I think it will be. But I think that's where finding the right rotations. I text you like I think the rotations were not great in this game either. And I don't know if that's just because Tshiebwe comes back and they're just like, well, let's try this and try that, and we haven't seen all these together before. But it was a lot of those different things. But again, I'm just getting the negatives out of the way first because I got a lot of positives. If you're a Kentucky fan, don't be jumping off the bus just yet, because there's a lot of positives I think you can take away from this game. But those were some of the things that really stood out to me. If you want to look at it from the disappointing aspect of this game.
Yeah, one more thing that I would question because I have one huge positive, but I'll let you get yours out of the way, then I'll get mine in. I don't know that you want Xavier Wheeler taking 16 shots. I mean, my criticism of him back to
I
Georgia
agree.
was he's not the most efficient guy, and I get that there's a difference in efficiency when you got Kentucky's talent around you as opposed to Georgia's, but it's part of his background. And again, you mentioned where it was Reeves. I don't think you're wrong on that.
Yeah, I think Reeves has to be in those kind of moments. He has to be, and I think Cal said it after the game. I think he said that he felt like he should have left Reeves in. Here it is. Here's a quote from Jack Pilgrim's got on Twitter here. Hindsight, maybe I should have kept Antonio in the game and let him go get baskets for you. I would agree with that, because I think their offense elsewhere was not what it needed to be. And I think at least he realizes that, right? I don't think it's, oh, well, we did this and this is what we're doing. I think he realizes Reeves probably should have been on the floor in some of those spots. So that's something. But here's something else too, Chris. Let me say this real quick. I think that, and that's where Wheeler's having to do stuff himself because he was really the guy that had to, I think, in that spot, other than the guy I'm about to get to in a second when we switch to the positives. Um, Frederick and Reeves were not on the floor together very much last night. I think there is, like, to me, that's a gift that's just sitting there for you to have two guys that can shoot the ball like that on the floor at the same time, especially in those late game situations. Because then what does that do? Like defensively, think about the pressure that puts on you. Having two guys like that, I just think they've got to be on the floor together, in my opinion, a lot
Okay,
more.
then you're sitting Case and Wallace in that scenario, right?
I mean, I'm not
You
saying
played
that's
44 minutes
necessarily.
last night.
Well, and we're about to get to him. Okay, I was saving him for the positives. I'm just talking about in those kind of scenarios. I feel like if you need one of those baskets, that is one where even if you just put it in a couple situational spots, if you have two guys on the floor that can shoot it the way that those two guys can shoot it, figure out what rotation you need to make that work. That's all I'm saying. Defensively, is it going to be a great lineup? Maybe not, but I just think that there are spots to use those guys in. Just my opinion. So,
Positives.
well, I mean, what do we say about Case and Wallace? Because I know people are going to say, well, he missed the free throws. Great. People are going to miss free throws in a game. This guy is so good. Like, he is just so good. And I was just 8 steals. He had 8 steals. How many big plays did he sort of come up with on the defensive side? His offense will continue again, I think, to evolve, to get, again, more acclimated with what they want to do offensively once they figure out all their rotations and everything. Um, but man, I just I think that I said it last. I think he's one of the best freshmen they've had there. Not saying he's the best freshman they've had, but he's one of the best, I think, from a pure talent standpoint. Like, he's NBA ready yesterday. Like, I mean, he is. I just think he is. He's like I said, he played 44 minutes, right? He's like, you can't take him off the floor. I just think, and I know you just kind of pointed out, well, you have to take him off if you play Frederick and Reeves. Well, you can find a way to make that work, and still keep him out there, I think. But I just feel like he's going to be the driving force of this team, not named Oscar Tshiebwe, because you just see all the different things he can do, and I've been impressed with him since the start. But this was the kind of game where you really saw what he's capable of, and he's just going to give them so much on both sides of the floor, I think.
By the way, CJ Frederick, how about him getting his lip busted or whatever happened, bleeding? I think his only 3 of the game down the stretch.
Yeah.
That was just a little thing that happened. Okay, I've got a positive. I'll let you get yours out of the way first, and I want to see if
No,
you agree
go
with
ahead.
mine.
I'll come back to what you're saying.
All right. Is Oscar Tshiebwe a better player than he was a year ago?
I mean,
I
I know
mean,
we're gonna
all of a
start.
sudden
Yeah.
now shot blocking is a thing with him, which I mean, I think he blocked a few last year, but not a lot. I mean, not. Am I wrong about that?
I mean, he's going to be good. Like we know that. I mean, we said it. He's got a great chance to be the National Player of the Year again, and maybe in unanimous fashion again. Like he is. I mean, he's just that good. And I still don't think we saw him. I don't know. Like it's his first game back. Like this guy's just getting back into the mix, and he goes for what 22
He
and
goes
18.
22 and 18 and 4 blocks. Okay, he averaged 1.6 blocks a game last year. He blocked 4 last night.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I I think that he is. I mean, we're not saying anything that no one doesn't already know. I mean, he is what's going to drive them if they're going to win a national championship. Like he's the game changer, right? And I know people point out, well, he missed, some of those situational spots late and all that. Yes, those happen in the course of a game, and they just happen at the worst times in this game. He fouls out, and um, he's not in there. How are things different in overtime? Obviously, they're probably a little bit different, but I don't know if he's going to be. We can play the comparison game. It's his first game back, but I just, yeah, I just think that. Um, Yeah, I mean, he's great. Like, what else do we say? I mean, he's fantastic. So, yeah.
So, what was the freak out factor in Lexington last night? I haven't checked message boards. I don't do a lot of Twitter.
I don't know if it's freak out. I think it's disappointment, and I understand that.
Okay.
Like, I think they should be disappointed because it's a game that was there for the taking, and they
Yeah.
just did not come through in some of those key spots. Yeah, I think that was it. I think that is now look, are there gonna be some overreactions? Of course there are. But I still am very high on this Kentucky team. If you ask me right now, I would still put them at number 1 in our power rankings. My mind hasn't changed on that. It's just I think it's still, and that's our SEC power rankings, by the way. I'm not saying nationally. I understand that part. But I don't know. I think there are still some things like every other team, they have some things to figure out. But is the upside there? Of course it is. I think the
Yes.
rotations are going to be a big thing to watch here. Like we said, is it playing Reeves and Frederick more to get, some of those 3 opportunities? And can they run more stuff to get those guys? I mean, that's the thing too. I don't want to take anything away from Michigan State here. And I know we haven't really talked about them in this whole 15 minutes here, but let's be honest. Like I said, this is a good team. And, it's a Tom Izzo coach team, and you know what they can do defensively. And they did some of that stuff. They didn't allow a lot of open shots. Um, they made some tough shots of their own, right? I mean, Joey Hauser, we said complete non-factor against the Zags. Did nothing. Got in foul trouble, just a non-factor. He comes out here and goes for 23 points and makes 4 threes and plays 46 minutes. It's just like that is what Michigan State needed to be able to win this game. And yeah, I mean, don't take anything away from Michigan State. Sissoko was really good down the stretch. Um, all those guys they made some big plays. So I don't want to say any of this about Kentucky and not give any credit to Michigan State because they had a big role in a lot of this defensively, especially keeping Frederick Reeves in check. But my thing goes back to I saw Michigan State run their stuff And I think Kentucky at times doesn't run enough stuff. I think they just try to make something happen in their, foundation of their offense versus no, we're going to do this on this specific play. And I think some of those things would work a little bit better in those kind of games, versus just sort of more of the free flowing stuff that they've done over the years. I think you just need more structure in certain play calls and some of those kind of big moments down the stretch.
Well, look, there was a little bit of a warning, even if we didn't express it that way embedded in our preview. We went through and we noted how many guys on Michigan State had
Yep.
played together for 3 or 4 years, had played a lot of minutes. It's a different game than it was 3 or 4 years ago. There's not a lot of teams that are going to have that cohesion. This just in. Tom Izzo's a Hall of Fame coach.
Yeah. No, I mean that's the thing,
Sometimes it
right?
just happens. Well, and
Chemistry.
that leads
Yeah.
me, yes, and that leads me to the freak out factor. We're just two guys. We love SEC basketball. We watch it dispassionately without a rooting interest, and so we tell you what we see. What is the freak out factor? What should it be on a scale of 1 to 10 after what you saw last night?
I mean, a 3. I don't know. Like it's not that high for me.
No.
I think though these are the kind of games you have to win in March, right? But
Right.
it's not March. It's November. It's like, will they learn from that? Of course they will. Will Cal adjust to a game like that moving forward? That's your hope, is that they will, if they find themselves in those situations again, which they will they make better adjustments? And that's all you're asking for. And I think that's it. And, you know, again, that's the kind of loss to me, Chris, coming off of how the season ended last year.
Yeah.
That's where the frustration comes in. Is you're the favorite in this game. You knew it was going to be a tough game, but you've seen what this team is capable of through 2 games. Obviously, different competition, but I think that's seeing some of those common things you saw last year. That's where I think Kentucky fans have a reason to be frustrated. Is the I think it goes back to, like I said, just some of the offensive things that they do. I just feel like have to be better in those kind of games. You can get away with it against Howard and Duquesne, but in those kind of games, I think your approach offensively has to be a bit better, and we'll see how that changes. But I don't. I'm not, like I said, I'm not ready to write off Kentucky by losing a double overtime game where they played both overtimes without Oscar Tshiebwe. I'm not ready to go that route yet because they have a lot of upside. Like I said, love Case and Wallace. I still think Severe Wheeler will do a lot of things for them this season. I just think that, again, how they run their offense in late game situations um, doesn't always have to be just trying to let him do everything, because I think that I don't know that that's the best formula, um, in that scenario. So,
Yeah, my freak out factor on this is probably about a 2, and it all goes back, as you said, to last year. I mean, there was a little bit of a common denominator that they couldn't have a guard step up and hit the big 3 when it mattered, for reasons of rotation or just someone not doing it. So there was a little bit of deja vu. If you pick up where Kentucky left off a year ago, but I mean, there's more than enough talent to figure that out. And this year they've got 2 guys that can do that, right? I mean, at a minimum, rather than what can Kellen Grady do or not do for them. So,
yeah, I mean, here's what we know with Kentucky. We know that Wallace and Tshiebwe have to play as long as they can in each game, right? What that looks like around them, I think, is the most fascinating discussion moving forward. Is
yeah.
what are the best lineups around these 2 guys? Um, what combination of the other 3 works best with those 2 guys? Because those, to me, are the no-brainers, have to be on the floor every second of the game if they can play. Everybody else, I think it's just seeing what's the best way, and I don't think they figured that out last night. I think there was I don't think they got there last night. In seeing what the best rotation was, I think they played some rotations that didn't necessarily play well together. And those kind of things you fix throughout the non-conference, and you get ready for SEC play. So,
Well, and let me throw this out. I don't remember what their timeout situation was last night, but that might be where, if you're Calipari, you save a lot of your timeouts for the end if you got a close game, and that's when you can go offense, defense, get both those kids on the floor at the same time.
yeah, that's what I was going to say. I mentioned the getting the Frederick Reeves combination in there more.
Yes.
My point on that is not they have to be out there all the time together. It's indifferent in these scenarios where you need two shooters to kind of open the floor up a bit. That's where I think just trying it a bit more in that kind of game would have maybe helped a little bit. Although, like you said, neither hit shots the way they did before, and the competition went up.
One more shot, and the conversation is totally different. Although Michigan
Yes.
State could say the same thing. Somebody
Yeah.
somewhere hits a shot and it doesn't go to overtime and whatever. But
Yep. So there you go. We'll see how they get better from here.
where are we going next? Alabama?
I know everyone tuned in. Like, you look, it's just again, these are big games, right? Like we have to give the attention to the games that are big, and that was a huge non-conference game. Now let's go to Auburn next, because
Okay.
I think that
I didn't see any of that one or not much of it.
well, look, that was on during the 3-hour marathon that was Kentucky and Michigan State, but I went back and saw quite a bit of that, and I think that the thing about Auburn is so far, and I know our buddy Donovan always likes to have fun with us about hating on the Tigers, but it's not that I think I've had an issue with Auburn so far. It's just that we've said from the start, I think it was offensively, what's this team going to look like a month from now, 2 months from now? Last night they shoot it better, 9 of 23 from three. That's encouraging. Green hits 4 threes. That's great. That's what you want to see. His scoring, as expected, has been pretty consistent, right? And I think that is an encouraging thing. I mean, he scored at least 16 in the first 3 games. So that's good. That's kind of starting to see a guy that's separating himself in that regard. Broome goes for 18 last night. That's what you need out of him.
18 and 13 and 5 blocks.
That's what you need out of him.
That's Walker Kesslerish.
You need all those things. You need scoring, you need rebounding, you need shot blocking. If you can get all those out of him, Auburn's going to be just fine. Westry finally played last night. I think he's going to give them some things. I feel pretty good about kind of his contributions in the rotation. So, and by the way, Chris, breaking news here. Zep Jasper, he did have a turnover last night. Let's not hate on him too much, but he did turn the ball over last night. First time this season. So
he and Green started together. That's interesting.
Yeah. I think that, I mean, to me, that's a multi, it's having 2 primary ball handlers on the floor that you can put in those spots. And so, yeah, I kind of like what I'm seeing just from that group so far. But everything else will work its way out. Traore scores 11 off the bench, 17 minutes. Nice to have. So yeah, I want to make it clear. Like, I'm not saying I'm concerned about Auburn. I'm just, as we do with all teams, you have to point out what you see this early in the season. What we've seen is that a team that may still struggle from outside, but their defense has been really good. They've been great on that side of the floor through 3 games. And obviously the competition will start to step up here in about a week and a half or so. But until then, I like the path the Tigers are headed on here.
Well, we talk about Alabama's depth. They are exceptionally deep inside. I think Dylan Cardwell he's never going to put up numbers, but I thought when they put him in the game a year ago, he produced really well for them. I think he'll do that again this year. They've got Traore coming off the bench. I mean, they've got a lot of dudes inside.
Yeah, I like I said, I like the team. I think that they're going to be just fine. So, but that was Auburn, Alabama. Like you said, they get a 65-55 win at South Alabama. Good for them going to play in a road game like this early in the season.
Left a lot of meat on the bone in that one.
Yeah, I mean, look, here's the deal. Alabama's a high potential team. They have a lot of potential, and like I said, I think they've got one of the more impressive non-conference results thus far in how they beat Liberty. But just like the other teams, there's still some things I think that they have to get better at. You know, I think not turning the ball over as much would be a starting point there. But here's what we know: we know Brandon Miller's a star. We know they're going to be an elite rebounding and I think just overall defensive team because of their length and their athleticism. If you've seen their offensive rebounding numbers so far, it's pretty ridiculous, isn't it? Top
Yeah,
five in the
Richie,
country.
your other client, Richie Riley, was not really happy about that last night.
Well, I mean, that's it's not. They didn't just do it against him. They had. Well, they have any rebound? Often they had 25 offensive rebounds last night. They had, let me see, 22 against Longwood, and I don't think they had a ton against Liberty. They had 12 against Liberty. But they're the top five in the country right now in offensive rebounding percentage. But it's that length and athleticism that's going to give them an opportunity.
Ooh.
You
Hey,
know,
I was going to ask you: is there a longer team in the country than Alabama?
I mean, I don't know, but they've got it. Like that's
Mhm.
probably the best way to put it. Like they've got the things, and again, that's why what we said was last year's team just where was the frustration point with last year's team? It was the defensive side of the floor. This team is already, and I texted you, they're already a better defensive team through 3 games
Oh,
than they were the
much.
entire season last year. So I think that's the big key here is they are defending and that length and that athleticism. They are consciously defending their opponents, and I think they're way more consistency there thus far. So that's been a big difference too for Alabama.
Brandon Miller, if you've not seen him, my goodness, the kid's so much fun to watch.
Yeah, I mean, he's yeah, he's going to be he's a first team All SEC player. Let's just call it what it is. Forget freshman team. He's a first team All SEC guy. That's what it's looking like. So yeah, so
Noah
nice.
Clowney had 15 boards for them last night too, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, what we said. I mean, this group, I tell you, this freshman group. Um, I mean, keep that in mind, right? They start last night. 4 underclassmen. They started Miller, Clowney, Bediako, Burnett. So yeah, I mean, they're good, and they're going to get Quinterly back. I think Quinterly is. I
They
mean, he
did get
played what?
Quinterly
I was
back.
going to say that he got in 4 minutes, but I mean, they're going to get him back full strength here soon. Like he got in there a couple minutes last night, but they're about to get him back. So and back as in fully back. So there's another one to add to the mix. So yeah, this is a good team.
Alabama just didn't hit shots last night. I didn't think their looks, and I only watched the first half. I didn't think their looks were bad. They just didn't hit them. I didn't think
Well, I
their
mean, here's
offense
the
was
thing
bad.
too.
They play fast again.
I mean, it's a different game too, right? If South Alabama hits a couple more threes, they went 2 of
Yes.
23. So, it's something else to keep in mind here. But Alabama was basically on cruise control until about they were up 20 with 7 minutes left. But um, then things kind of But good win for Alabama. So, all right, let's quickly talk about Vanderbilt, and then we'll wrap up with Ole Miss, Missouri, fast. I can see a lot of Vanderbilt Temple, but obviously a much needed win for Vanderbilt in overtime.
Yeah, I had that one on while I was watching Kentucky, and I'll be honest. As much as I didn't think that game was compelling, you take the names off the jerseys. That was a crazily entertaining game last night. First of all, Damian Dunn for Temple almost single-handedly won that game. He's got 38 points. He missed 5 shots. He could not miss. Vanderbilt had a, 12, 13-point lead and was, I'm not going to say cruising, but looking really good. And Dunn just single-handedly got them back in the game, went to overtime. Who was it hit a shot? I think it was, their point guard, Ezra Mannion, hit a little baseline jumper with a few seconds left. And then Temple's block on the, or excuse me, Liam Robbins blocked a shot at the buzzer last night. He got out a little bit extended and blocked a, 16, 17-foot jumper, I think it was. And Vandy wins. Temple had just beaten Villanova. I think the thing for Vandy is like the first 2 games, I don't know where Stackhouse had gotten sideways with his upperclassmen. It seemed like the sticking point was defense, although that didn't make any sense to me because when I watched them the first two games, offense was the bigger issue. But anyway, their vets last night for the first time all year came through. Studi gives them 21, hits 7 threes. Jordan Wright goes 9 of 18, scores 18 points, and off the bench. No, I'm sorry, he started. No, he didn't. Robbins came off the bench to give them 20, although only 3 rebounds. And Ezra Mannion had 9 assists, and I don't think he had a turnover. So yeah, I mean, it was like I did not get the whole thing where in the Memphis game I was at that one where they're down, I don't know, 12-13, and he's got most of his established guys on the bench, and then he benches them all for the Southern Miss game, which was an awful loss, and then they lose that one. I don't know what happened between Friday night and last night, but all the guys that you would have figured before the season would contribute for them were doing that again.
I mean, I think this game makes the Southern Miss loss probably even more disappointing now because you're like,
Yeah.
well, look at what you can get, and yet you have that game sitting there staring at you. But no, it's a nice bounce back win. If they're going to win, they got to have their upperclassmen play well. Like there's what else do you say? I mean, they've got to have Wright, Robbins, Studi, Mannion. They've got to play well. Like that's what it comes down to. And they finally all did that together in this game. And yes, I think there were clearly some things you can take away from this and be pretty optimistic moving forward. But it's just wanting all that to stay, where they're getting the bulk of the minutes because I think then that's the only way they're going to win. I just don't think they have the depth to support many other lineups or rotations. Those are 4 guys that have to play a ton and give them the bulk of the production. I don't think there's any other combination you would say elsewhere. It's going to be, I think, those 4, and they gave it to him, and that's why they got a win over a Temple team. We'll see what they are, but like you said, Damian Dunn's fantastic, and
Goodness,
yeah. So that's a nice bounce back win for Vanderbilt. Any way you slice it after the way they played against Southern Miss. So
your client Dennis Gates,
105
can score. It appears.
Yep, they can score.
Demoy Hodge got 30, I think.
Look, here's the deal with Demoy Hodge. We've said this before. I said this when they signed him. All right, go back and watch some of Demoy Hodge's games. Well, I mean, you don't have to now, but I mean, this is a guy. What was it? The craziest stat a couple years ago, he had like 46 in a game against who was it? IPFW, I think, and pretty inconsistent elsewhere. But like he only had one other 20-point game that year. It explodes for 46 in the game, hit 10 threes. Then last year you saw more of that consistency in his scoring. He was hitting that mark regularly, not 46 points, but kind of hitting that double digit and beyond mark pretty regularly. So he has continued to evolve his offensive game, but he's a guy, and we use the word streaky, but like he can go off at any time. And I think that is such a nice thing to have. But yes, like they score 105 on SIU Edwardsville. They've now scored 82, 92, 97, and 105 in their first 4 games. Now, Chris, here's the thing. Has their defense been great? Nope.
No.
But
No,
if you're just talking about reinvigorating a program, I think fans are okay with that if they're not.
Offense had been in the dumpster for what, 6-7 years. I mean, they have been brutal to watch. They're just not fun.
There you go. That was the way to put it. And nothing against the former staff. They were not a fun offensive team. And this is a fun offensive team. Now, on the flip side, there will be frustration that's probably already set in, that is going to set in even more with the defense, I think, once they start playing better competition, because this defense is not good. And I think defense and rebounding are going to be a theme with this team. But here's what they got to do more of. And they've done that to this point. I mean, they're top 25 turnover percentage defense. That's what Dennis Gates wants to do. They got to force turnovers because that's going to help them in those areas that they are not as good as other teams on the defensive side. And so I think that's a big part of what they're going to have to do is just keep forcing turnovers. They're certainly applying the pressure thus far. Some games they'll be able to do that more than others in terms of, pressing and those kind of, scenarios. But I mean, what can you say? They've got a lot of pieces on offense. I mean, this could be,
Yes.
I mean, they are going to be fun to watch. They may play some of the highest scoring games in the SEC this season. But I think you just want to continue to see how they get better on defense, because right now, I think they're an elite offensive team just because they got so many different options. So, yeah.
Is Isaiah Mosley out of the doghouse? He played 23 minutes last
He's
night.
out of the doghouse, and you know what? I don't know what any of that's all about, what happened there, but here's what we know. Isaiah Mosley came in with a lot of scoring accolades and all this other stuff, but what we've seen, and I think especially saw this last night, this guy's not just a scorer, okay? He can do other things, and I think he can be a good facilitator. Took 10 shots or took 11 shots last night. So let's just move beyond that at this point. I get it. The Penn game, everyone just had no idea what to make of what happened, but we know what the guy gets capable of. We know the potential's there. He wasn't going to score 20 points a game in the SEC, but he can do things that are going to help them, and he's going to still be one of their more important players, I think. But yeah, I mean, keep that in mind too, right? Like they score 105, he scores 10. I mean that shows you what they got on this team offensively. So, yeah, I think they should be excited about their offensive prospects. Defensive prospects, we will see. Up next, Chris, who's up next for Missouri?
That would be Ole Miss, which Matt
Now, hold on,
Morrell, who I have.
hold on.
Oh,
You know who's up
up next.
next
I'm
for
sorry. I thought
Missouri?
you meant after Missouri.
No,
No, I do
who's
not.
up next for Missouri?
But of course you would.
It's going to be Mississippi Valley State, who currently ranks 362 in KenPom, off to an 0-4 start, gave up 170 points on the road at Baylor. So the Missouri offensive train.
What do they rank on defense?
358. So,
ooh, could we see 150?
Baylor put up 117. So, but they played better at Hawaii. They played better. Well, I mean, they lost by 18.
150 is a lot. Could we see 125?
I don't think they're going to hit 125. But let's just say this: I think the offensive train will continue to roll right along for Missouri. So,
okay.
Ole Miss, wrap it up with the
now to Ole Miss. Matt Morrell, who I think I'm a little higher on than you are.
I don't know why you say that. I don't know why you
well, we had our little internal power rankings debates.
I don't think he's a bad player.
Which we never had time to publish. And
there were just a lot of guys I had in front of him. I don't think he's a bad player at all. So, he's doing what he should be doing right now. I think because
25 points.
No Deshaun Ruffin, having him in there, he is off to a great start. He's hit 12 threes in 3 games. That's what that team needs. Like we were asking some of the questions about Ole Miss, what's their percentage is going to be from 3. That's something we had to watch for this team. They weren't great at that last year. Actually, they haven't been great at that in a while. But having him making shots from outside, that's a big thing for this team, because like we said, I think they're going to be fine defensively. But still, we're still waiting for them to get Ruffin back. And I think once he's back, that makes them an even more dangerous team for sure. So,
okay, before we wrap it up with final thoughts and maybe looking forward a bit, shout out to our sponsor, Stakes. You can predict sports better than the crowd for a chance to win NFTs. With Stakes, players can cement their sports predictions against friends, other fans, and influencers forever. Don't let your sports genius go overlooked. Join Stakes and have the best predictions captured in the moment. Playwithstakes.com/14, along with the invite code Southeastern14. Get you a double welcome bonus. Help out the folks who help us. Free to join, free to play. It's not a betting app. It's a predictions app. It's lots of fun. So go to Stakes today and have some fun there for yourself. Okay. Biggest takeaways from Tuesday night.
Kaysen Wallace is terrific. Oscar Tshiebwe is terrific. Kentucky's got some work to do with their rotations and their offense. Auburn is getting there, and I don't mean that in a negative way. I just think like seeing them make some shots from outside, specifically Wendell Green, that was encouraging. Their defense, though, it's going to be elite, so I'll have a lot of questions about that. like you said, Missouri can score. We know that. Alabama, I think, has a very, very high ceiling. Like I said, I think Alabama through 3 games, if we're talking about SEC championship contenders, like they're high up that list. I think they're that good. I also think Auburn's in there. So yeah, not a ton. I mean, I know we spent a lot of the discussion on Kentucky, Michigan State, but like I said, I'm not jumping off the Kentucky train just yet because I think that they're too talented just to collapse here. But it's one game, double overtime loss. It's just they have to correct some of those things, and then they'll be fine.
All right, I'm going to throw 3 days worth of games at you quickly.
Oh boy!
Tonight we got Florida Gulf Coast, and I don't guess we call them Dunk City anymore, do we?
No.
That is tonight. We do this Wednesday morning. South Dakota State and Arkansas. The Jackrabbits have been tricky at times. I don't know what they have this year. Thursday, we've got Murray State and A&M, Colorado State and South Carolina, and Charleston. That could be a little interesting. Colorado State's usually pretty good, and I want to see if
they're without Isaiah Stevens though for a while.
Okay. South Carolina State and Kentucky, we will learn nothing there. New Orleans and LSU, same thing. Is New Orleans? Wait, New Orleans is in the Southland, right?
Yep.
Okay. South Dakota, not South Dakota State and Mississippi State on Thursday. And then Friday, we've got Morehead State, Vandy, Bucknell, Georgia, UT Martin, Ole Miss, Texas Southern, Auburn, Florida State, which has lost some luster, and Jacksonville State at Alabama. What are you going to be watching? I mean, we were going to be trying to watch a little bit of everything, but what sticks out?
I'm watching them all, man. I'm watching every single game in some way, shape, or form. I mean, Florida State is fascinating for the wrong reasons. Florida State's 0-3. They've lost to Stetson, UCF, and Troy. Florida's got to win that game after losing that one against Florida Atlantic. That's what you want to see. That's what I'm most interested in is can Florida bounce back and win a game against a team that's 0-3. It's their rival. They're desperate on the road. I think that's a big game just for both teams. I think for their confidence moving forward. So yeah, that's probably the most interesting aspect. And again, I mean, South Carolina, even against the Colorado State team without Isaiah Stevens, can South Carolina, find a way to win another close game because they played 2 close ones so far. So yeah, those are probably the biggest ones. And I guess probably is Nick Smith. When is he going to play? I think that's another storyline too with that. So yeah, those are probably some of the interesting ones. And then of course, Chris, things get interesting because next week, a lot of good games next week, and Kentucky's going to play the Zags. Arkansas Louisville game. Talking about a game losing its luster. Louisville now 0-3, and do you hear about this? There's a stat I saw last night, and it was an SEC show. But did you see the stat on Louisville?
No.
They are the first team since, was it 1980 or 1960? Either way, that's a lot of years, right? To lose their first 3 games each by 1 point.
Wow.
Bellarmine 67-66, Wright State 73-72, Appalachian State 61-60. That's a brutal thing to think about.
That is brutal.
You want to talk about if you're a coach and what keeps you up at night? That keeps you up at night. You're starting your
nice. Yeah. Well, that's the start to Kenny Payne's career too.
Yeah. It's like, man, my first 3 games, we lost them all by a single point. And you know how coaches think. They're thinking we could have did this, that. That would just be, I can't even imagine what that's like mentally to think about all the different things and how many plays away you are right now from being 3-0. And now they get Arkansas next. Yeah. So there you go.
You're welcome, Kentucky fans. We brought
Kentucky fans. You tuned in. You waited long enough. If you waited 45 minutes, you got what you ultimately came for. And that was a quick discussion on Louisville being 0-3. So,
yeah. Okay, we are done. Again, we're doing this Wednesday morning. We have live streams every Wednesday night, and this will be football focused. I'm not saying we won't hit a basketball topic or two for sure, because these are listener focused shows, so people can hop in the chat and ask us stuff. And so if you do have a hoops question, we're going to concentrate on football, but we may hit one or two select ones. So when you watch that, the best way to make sure you don't miss it is hit that subscribe button. For Blake Lovell, I'm Chris Lee. We are Southeastern 14, presented by Steaks, and we'll see you again soon.